Well, good morning, college football fans. Well, yesterday pretty much went the way I thought it would go. Don't get me wrong, there were a few surprises yesterday, which we'll talk about. First, we'll talk about my local team, Army. Improves their record to 2-3. They win 31-13. They take advantage of 2 UAB turnovers. And UAB had trouble stopping the triple option all day. And Army held the ball for almost 37 minutes. Despite the fact that UAB had more total yards, dominated in yards passing, but the 2 turnovers killed them. Both teams are now 2-3. Now, as far as the top 25 go yesterday, like I said, there's nothing surprising here. BYU won their game on Friday night over West Virginia 38-24. Georgia won 35-14 yesterday over Kentucky. And I'm telling you right now, the SEC is not having a good year this year. I mean, Georgia may be ranked number 12, but I think the defense, don't correct me wrong, recorded their first sack of the year yesterday. And not for nothing, I know they lost to Alabama, but I don't think Alabama is that good either. Sorry, I got calls, they say it, they aren't that good. Purdue won their interstate with Purdue, Illinois beat Purdue 43-27. Michigan, I thought that could be a decent game, and it was nothing great to speak about the game. They did what they had to do, 24-10. Notre Dame, which should not be in the top 25 at all, won 20-7. You watch, they'll probably bump this team up by 5 places, which they don't deserve. I thought Vanderbilt was a questionable team coming yesterday at 16, and Alabama won 30-14, so everyone could calm the heck down about Vanderbilt. Oklahoma did what they had to do, 44-0. Texas Tech won easily. Ohio State won by 39 points. And Texas A&M, even though this was a good game for a while, they won 31-9 over Mississippi State. Now, the surprises we had yesterday, Virginia won their game in overtime 30-27. Probably one of the 2 better games of the day. Now, the surprises we had yesterday, first of all, Iowa State losing to Cincinnati 38-30. This was definitely a shocker. I don't think Cincinnati had beaten a ranked team in something like 4 or 5 years. And despite the fact that Rocco Beck of Iowa State won 30 for 48, threw a lot of passes, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns, and 314 yards passing, they could not stop Cincinnati all day. Cincinnati dominated the run game. Everett Pryor had 111 yards rushing. Tyree Walker had 89 more yards rushing. And their quarterback, Brendan Sorsby, had 64 yards rushing to go with 214 yards passing. And Iowa State is probably going to be knocked out of the top 20 this week, as well as they should be. That is a terrible loss by them. Of course, the big game I was talking about yesterday, Miami, Florida State. Miami was up 28-3, and they ended up winning 28-22. Florida State got a lot of garbage scores towards the end, but this is the part that kills me about Miami. Miami does this crap, and this is what kills Miami every year, that at least once or twice a year, one of these games gets out of hand of them. And if you look at the stats, Florida State dominated because towards the end, they had double the amount of first downs of Miami. They had more total yards than Miami, more passing yards, more rushing yards. Miami had beat them in penalties 13-5. Total plays 83-59 in favor of Florida State. But the three stats they couldn't beat Miami in, one was the scoreboard, two was the turnover battle. Florida State had 3, Miami had none. Miami took advantage of all 3 turnovers, and yards per play. Miami was 5.7. Florida State was 4.9, and the Hurricanes will probably remain at number 3. Oregon was idle. I don't think Florida State was that impressive for Miami to hop over Oregon. I would look for them to stay where they are at number 3, and that's fine. Now the surprises yesterday. 1, the Florida State Gators beat number 9 Texas 29-21, and I'm dying to hear how the media is going to make excuses for Archie Manning this week. I'm sorry, but Archie Manning has been this year. You just got to call it as you see it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Was he absolutely horrible? But for a guy who's been hyped up like him, 16 of 29, 263 yards passing, 2-2 on the touchdowns and deceptions. His quarterback rate under 100. I'm dying to see how the media is going to coddle this guy this week. Meanwhile, DJ Lagaway was 21-28, ran the game real good, managed the team real good. 298 yards passing, but he also had a quarterback rate of 125.60. He was 35 points ahead of good old Archie Manning. You had the fact that Jaden Ball had 107 yards rushing. The Florida State running attack had 160 yards rushing. And they took advantage of 2 big Texas turnovers, even though both teams had 2. And Florida upsets Texas. They should be below at least 15 this week. I don't want to hear any more crap about Archie Manning ever again this year. I don't. They will have to do some turnaround, as we're about halfway through the season now, for me to take that team seriously. Alright, the biggest surprise yesterday. UCLA coming in at 0-4, hosting Penn State at number 7. You know, you'd think Penn State would come in with a big chip in the shoulder. Before you blinked, UCLA was up 24-0. I think they were up 34-10 at one point. Penn State did make a fierce comeback. Towards the end of the game, Penn State had 4th and 2. Could have won the game. They ran an absolute terrible play. The UCLA stops them. And interim coach Stan Neuheiser gets UCLA's first win. They win 42-37. If that name Stan Neuheiser sounds familiar, his dad, Rick Neuheisel, was a coach by UCLA in the 1980s. So Penn State should be knocked out of the top 10. They should be probably below 15. I'm sorry. But once again, if you saw that press conference yesterday, Penn State coach Franklin, the excuse he made, well, we never got over last week's loss. The travel killed us. We had injuries. Coach Franklin, you were a 24.5 point favorite, and you came in and you laid an egg. This is the type of game that should get you fired tomorrow. Forget about the end of the year. Tomorrow, you guys have not won a big game once, and now you come out and you lay a terrible terrible egg against UCLA, and UCLA doubled you in time of possession, almost 40-20. Your defense gave up 435 yards to a 0-4 UCLA team. UCLA ran 20 more plays on offense than Penn State. And there was only one turnover the whole game, which UCLA took advantage of Penn State, but to go down to a team like that, Franklin needs to be fired. And finally, if you ask me, the best game of the day, Air Force and Navy. Navy wins game one of the Commander Chiefs Trophy, 34-31. And I'm sorry, but this Brian Newberry version of the triple option offense in Navy is something to be seen. I mean, Air Force may be rule the skies, but Navy yesterday, under this new offense with Blake Harveth, was controlling the skies. He was 20-26 for 339 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a quarterback rating of 156.73. I mean, this version of the triple option, I've never seen it run like this before. And my goodness, this is going to give defenses headaches when you have a option to use one of 3 running backs and have the ability to throw, which we've seen Navy do this year. And by the way, Navy is now 5-0. They are having the type of season that Army had last year. Navy is 5-0. I think Air Force is now 2-3. Air Force is not really, no, 1-4. The next game of the Commander Chiefs Trophy will be November 1st between Air Force and Army, and of course the big one in December, Army-Navy. But what a fun game that was yesterday. Even though that wasn't, the game means nothing as far as the top 25, I get it. But man, that triple offense under Brian Newberry and Blake Harveth, that is fun to watch. So there's your college football and for the weekend. We'll talk pro football later. Let me know what you think. Is the SEC overrated this year? Should Coach Franklin Penn State be fired? And what was the game of the day in your opinion? Keep the faith, take care of each other. Folks, we'll talk to you later.